Well, Cal, I'm so happy that we have this chance to meet together, to share information on your professional journey, how you have formed your style of authentic leadership. I thought it might be helpful if we framed our talk through the 3 phases that's in the Bill George book, True North, that you're discussing with the students. The phases being the preparation for leadership, the years of leading an organization, and then giving back. So if we look at phase 1, the preparing for leadership, could you share with us a little bit about your personal background, where you grew up, your family business?
Well, I grew up in Cicero and grew up in a family that was used to being in business. My father was an entrepreneur, and we grew up in the Timothy Christian community, so I went to all of my schooling at Timothy, and then was able to be part of that unique community that was full of entrepreneurs. We happened to be one family that wasn't primarily in the solid waste business, but there were literally hundreds of people in our community that owned their own businesses. So growing up in Cicero had a huge impact on me, realizing that it's okay and it's good to own a business. That was a place where it was expected. So I grew up in a home where my father was very active in business, and he had started a number of different enterprises, and he was an amazing businessman, considering I think he dropped out of school when I think he finished 7th grade. That was it. But he had an amazing ability to understand business dynamics and how to grow businesses. And that's the family I grew up in. It was always expected that you do something when you get done with your education. Dad was a very strong proponent of education because he didn't get a chance to do that. And when I was able to go to Trinity, he was very happy that I was not only going to college, but that I was going close to home. And so I came to Trinity in 1968, and I see one of my classmates back there, a couple of them now. Trinity was a very different place back then. We were in the middle of a very exciting time, in many ways good, in many ways bad. But we were in the middle of the Vietnam War time when I came here. And if you didn't have a college deferment, you were going to the war. And I'll never forget being here during those times when your choice was either to sign up for the military or study and you know, really keep your grades up. So it was a real incentive to have a serious educational experience while you were here at Trinity, and that really had a huge impact on all of us. I mean, we didn't mess around a whole lot.
And now when you came to Trinity, your majors, your areas were sociology, philosophy,
I came to
theology.
Trinity knowing exactly what I was going to do. I was going to be a minister.
You're going to be a minister.
Yeah, I knew exactly what I was going to do. But when I got here, and I remember sitting in this room, and Cal Serveld would always challenge us to, do you know who Cal Serveld is? I just thought, you don't even know who he is, do you? He was the Trinity brand back in the 60s. He was a philosophy teacher. And you didn't get through this place if you didn't take a whole bunch of philosophy. And Serveld was where you started. And I'll never forget sitting in this room and hearing him just ask real and significant, huge questions that you know, a freshman wouldn't have an idea how to answer. But his expectations were that you would leave this place and have an understanding of what you really believed and what was really important in life. And so, you know, coming in this place and having that kind of an influence was a huge impact. What was the question again?
So you come to school
Yes.
anticipating entering the ministry.
Yes, yeah,
And yet you leave and you go into the family business.
yes. Yeah, how'd that happen, huh?
How'd that happen? And, and how did you feel, how were you prepared to enter that?
Well, when I came here and I was able to sit in the classrooms and understand, my desire was to serve God in whatever I did. That's what I was able to differentiate while I was at Trinity, that I really wanted to be a kingdom builder. And one way to do that was to be a pastor, but there were thousands of other ways to do it. And this place gave me permission to think about all those 999 other places where you can do kingdom building. And the way that this place prepared me for that was, again, to give me the kind of understanding of the fact that no matter what vocation God calls you to, you can do it in a way that is God-honoring if you think Christianly, if you pursue godliness in what you do. And my time here was not a time of, preparing to, put together balance sheets or, anything to do with business. It was a time where I learned how to think, how to ask the right questions about why I do what I do or why I don't do things. That was equally important. So it gave me the skills to understand how you ask the right questions. And what it really did was it clarified things for me. I was raised in a Christian home, and I can never remember not believing in Jesus Christ as my Savior. When I came to this place, it was such a defining moment for me because everybody was searching and drilling down deeper and deeper and deeper as to what it meant not only to be a Christian, but to be under the lordship of Jesus Christ. And all those 4 years that I was here, I just loved being challenged to think about what it meant to follow Christ in whatever pathway we would end up going in. And I didn't know what I was going to do when I left here. I graduated in May of '72, and Marcy and I, my wife, we went off to celebrate, and she came back pregnant. And I had no job, I had no insurance, so I thought I better call up my brother and see if I could make some money and go work on the garbage truck. So that's the extent of my vocational training here.
But seeing that the title of your degree was not going to define your path as you followed God's calling.
No. I was a sociology major.
Okay.
And I had no idea what I was going to do with that either.
Because I went through some of the registrar documents because I wasn't sure if you were philosophy or sociology. And I have the program from '72, and I see people penciling in what the person's area is.
Yeah.
And I've got Calvin Tameling dash, but nothing, no descriptor. So I wasn't positive.
I was one of Riza's students, and he wouldn't give you any kind of an assignment.
Right.
Yeah.
Can you share a little bit about SET? How did you see the opportunity for that? What is its core business? Was it in any way in conflict with the family business? Was it in competition? Well,
the reason I was drawn to start that business is because I was working in the family business and I had access to lots of owner information, and I realized there was a whole new set of regulations that were coming down the pipe from the federal government that was having a huge impact on us and all of our friendly competitors. And I decided to start studying what those regulations were going to mean, and found out that nobody really had a good handle on the impact of regulations. And these were regulations to deal with the disposal of chemical waste as opposed to solid waste. Okay. And so when I decided to hang out a shingle and start doing this, I did not feel at all like I was in conflict with what the family business was. This was a totally different field, and it never was a conflict in any way. But I was able to take advantage of government regulations as they were implemented. The first government regulation started in 1976 for the disposal of hazardous waste. And we started in '79, and it was just perfect timing. Everybody was so scared of the regulations and the fines and the penalties that I went to all our friends in the solid waste business and I said, I'm going to do this, and I will guarantee you that I will do it legally, I will do it safely, and you will never have any of this come back to haunt you going forward, because it was very scary with those new regulations. And they all gave me business. And that's how I started.
When you started the business, what were you anticipating? Like when you looked 1 year out, 5 years out, what were you hoping was going to happen with the business, the size?
What I was hoping I was going to be able to do was take care of my family. I had 2 children at the time. And I had a business plan put together that was 1 page. And what it showed is that after 5 years, I would hope to have like 5 employees, and I'd hope to have enough income so that I could take care of my family and have a little extra money to grow the business from that point. So my 5-year plan was 5 employees, and I don't even remember what the sales volume was. It didn't matter.
And how
it didn't go according to that. It went way different. Within, I started working full-time there in April. By the end of that year, I think I had 15 employees, and I was hiring like crazy because the requests were just coming out of the woodwork. And these were not requests for me to do anything that I knew about. These were for things that I had no idea how to do. But the customers trusted me, and they said, will you try to do these things? And I said, sure, I'll try. But I ended up hiring scientists and engineers and people that understood chemicals. I never took a chemistry course in my life.
So how is it as a founder, owner of the business with a liberal arts background, where you're in a business environment working with scientists? I would think this is way out of your formal preparation.
Yes.
How did you manage to be successful with this?
Well, it was outside of my formal education process, but it was not outside of my family experience. When I was working in the family business, I worked my way into positions where I was managing all different kinds of people there too. So I knew how to write a job description. I knew how to hire people. I knew how to fire people. I knew how to deal with unions. And I knew how to basically assess a person's character and the quality of the person that we were going to consider hiring. And I made some mistakes, but for the most part, I think I learned a lot of that kind of watching my dad hire people over the years. I don't know exactly, but I have people that are working for me yet that started 30-some years ago, and that to me is really an affirmation that they were in the right place and I was in the right place, and we were able to do things the right way to keep them that long.
When you think of your leadership style, has it been a style-driven, what would you say is the essence of your leadership? Is it a management by objective approach to leadership?
No. No. What I do is I look for really good people who I believe are willing to work really hard. We have a work ethic in our company that, you know, it's something that I believe comes out of a historical understanding of the importance of work. So when you come and work for me at SET, you're going to find out before you are taken on board, you're going to work really hard. And that work is really important. And we don't say this in the interview, but my personal opinion as a Christian is that work is a redeeming activity. If you want to destroy a person's soul, take their work away from them. But if you want them to thrive, you give them work and you allow them to provide for their family and allow them to really work hard and feel good about what they're doing. It doesn't matter if they're sweeping floors or driving trucks or putting together financial statements. Everybody's doing this because they're trying to provide meaningful activity for their lives and to provide for their family. And I think that that is a hugely important thing.
In True North, Bill George says that the role of leaders is not to create followers, but to empower
Yes.
people to lead. And that was one of those, when I read that, I thought it's just so, it was really eye-opening to me, because I think many of us think to be a leader means people are lining up behind you
Yeah.
and trying to emulate you, following. But the idea is to create multiple leaders. I think that must take a very secure person, a person who isn't threatened easily. How has that happened at SET Environmental?
Well, it happened right away because I had to hire people that understood chemicals. So I had to get the best people I could find so that we would be safe. So that kind of started the whole directional thing of I was secure enough to not worry about hiring really smart people. And the way that our company has developed is we have, there are different stages of an entrepreneurial organization. At first, I had to do everything, and I had to figure it out so that I knew what everybody was doing. So at that point, you don't appoint people to do a lot of leading. You get the job done, and then you get to a size where you start bringing in additional resources, additional people, and you start sizing them up to see what you can hand off to them, and you start taking one hat off at a time. And people, I have found, love the opportunity to prove themselves. So you encourage them to lead, and as they demonstrate their ability to lead, you just keep giving them more and more opportunities to lead, and pretty soon they're leading you in their specific areas of expertise, and you are giving leadership to the overall organization. By the most important thing that I do is I provide the framework for decision making. I provide the values and the company character, and they know, everybody knows in our company what we allow and what we don't allow. And we have a code of conduct document that everybody has to sign up for and understand. We do things a certain way, and it reflects my values, basically, and now a lot of people's values, because they buy into that and they feel safe and protected. So once you have a person who demonstrates leadership capabilities and you hand them those values and those understandings of how we do things, they'll get the job done. They'll do it with their own signature, but they'll get it done.
In many of the management and leadership books now, you hear the phrase, the integrated life.
Yes.
The importance of a true leader being able to be the same, whether they're in their home, in the community, at work. I get the feeling that maybe by focusing on work as a form of worship to our Lord,
Mm-hmm.
that helps to bring those various aspects of your life. Do you think that's something that your employees recognize in the senior management at your company?
I think they recognize that we have values that are very important to us, and those values go with us no matter where we are. We don't have banners hanging around the business that say we're a Christian business. What we have are people that understand that we have these ways of doing things, we have these values, and we're not going to stray from them. You can count on that. We're going to do these things the right way. Now, whether they understand it's from a biblical perspective or not, it doesn't matter. They have to do it, otherwise they're not going to make it in our company. And we work to communicate that in different ways. And I would say all of the people on our senior management team, they all understand why I do what I do. But we don't run a church there, we run a business.
Some of your business growth has come through acquisition
Yes.
of other companies.
Yes.
How did you identify if bringing in another company would be a good fit? Has it always been a seamless cultural mesh?
No.
No.
No, usually, we have done it both ways. We have bought companies that were distressed where we knew that at the end of the day, none of the employees were going to make it. We're buying assets so that we can open up divisions in other areas. And you very quickly realize that these people are never going to buy into your way of doing things. They're never going to buy your values. They're never going to buy into how you treat customers, how you treat employees, and basically they usually leave right away when they hear how we do things. We have done it the other way too, where we buy a company that we just bought one in Michigan where I've known the owner for many, many years. He used to work for me, and he has created a culture that is very comfortable with our values, and they meshed right in with us, and we hardly lost anybody. But they knew us before we bought them. So,
have you ever been challenged by maintaining your value system when it comes to working with customers? Have you ever had to make a hard decision with customers? And in your nature of your work, I mean, people's safety is at risk. Have you had to make difficult decisions with customers that perhaps weren't adhering to proper procedures?
Yeah.
And how did employees react to that?
Well, we over the years have developed an approach to building our business where we have identified what we call profile customers. Profile customers accept the fact that we're going to do things above and beyond what many of our competitors will do, and they're going to have to pay for that quality. We're going to do things safely. We're going to do things legally. We're going to do things that we try to always exceed our customers' expectations. And we had an example in the last few years where our biggest customer, which we had worked with for 20-some years, we saw their culture change dramatically. It used to be incredibly important for them to have safety programs, and they had all kinds of key performance indicators that we were able to create with them so that we were always on the same page with everything being done exactly the way that they wanted it and the way we wanted it. And that was our biggest customer for years. But over time, new management came into that entity, and they started looking more at the bottom line, and they decided that they were paying too much for environmental services, so they just kept nipping at us, and then we reached a pricing issue that they wanted us to basically cut our prices in half, and we said, we can't provide this level of service for this fee. And so we lost it. And how did the employees feel about it? I think they were scared at first. But what we were able to do was redeploy all those employees to other companies that were profile companies, and we really didn't lose anybody at the end of the day. It was traumatic, but everybody's happier now because we're not doing work the way that we don't want to. We have to do it safely. We have to protect our people.
And sticking to your core values. Sometimes for young people here, it's not that there aren't hard decisions to be made.
Right.
It's not that even if you feel you're doing things the right way, that everyone else will see the logic of it.
Yeah.
and will agree to it. I
Yeah.
mean, sometimes you have to make the tough call, but
Right.
how has the business recuperated from the loss of a significant client?
Actually, we replaced all of that and grew substantially above and beyond what we had. So the impact to our company was nothing.
Do you feel it almost helped to attract other closer to your profile customers
I
if
think
they see this?
I think that just reinforced our desire to have profile customers more and more because organizations change. You know, you get new leadership at the top and it trickles down and it changes, and we're not always going to stay with the same clients because our values are not changing.
The third phase in leadership
Yeah.
is giving back.
Yes.
And as now you have less of the day-to-day responsibilities in the organization, you've had the ability to reach out and become more involved
Right.
with other organizations. And Trinity Business we're so pleased that with the Business Advisory Council that you are chairing that group and helping us look critically at what we want a Trinity Business Education to mean for students. As you look at the council begins its work, what do you think is key to helping us develop future business leaders?
Well, when I was first asked to consider doing it, I thought it was a great idea to have Trinity's business department interact with people that have their feet on the ground in the business world. But I had an added dimension, and that was I had my two youngest sons graduated from Trinity in the last 8-9 years with business degrees. And I have been able to have conversations with them over the years and just sit and say, what was missing in your education at Trinity? What do you wish would have been there? And they have real valid things that they wished would have been added. And now that they've been working for the last 8-9 years, they have all kinds of ideas of things that could be incorporated into a business program. And that excites me because we got, I didn't go through a business program here, but my sons did, and I know other people have. And I think it's great when you have an organization that is willing to open itself up for that kind of dialogue so that you can look at the strengths and the weaknesses and you can just have a collaborative discussion about how to really move things forward. And my desire for that advisory committee is that we're able to add components that raise the bar so that more and more Trinity graduates can be impactful in the way they go into business, and that a reputation is developed so that what I would love to see is everybody's lining up to get Trinity graduates to work, but SET gets first shot, Ozinga, those of us that have been doing it get first shot. But, all of the kids in the business program have an opportunity to learn so many great things about work and about skills and about different vocational training programs. But at the essence, what I'm looking for is the right kind of people. I can train any one of you to work in my company, but I want you to be a certain type of individual that, first of all, understands what work is about and that can buy into my values. And my guess is that most of you would love the values that we have. You might not like the workload I put on you, but you get used to it. But it's a place where, I love being able to provide an opportunity for graduates to come in and cut their teeth in the business world. Because not everybody's going to like working for my company or anybody else's company. You have to have opportunities to get engaged and to find out what it really means to be a Christian in business. And then you'll find your way. I doubt that any of you, when you leave this place, you're going to find the career that you stick to for the rest of your life. Hardly ever happens. But God opens doors so that you can try different things and you can help make decisions about what He's calling you to do. That's what it's all about. You got to find your passion, and you got to figure out how to live through that passion. You know, when we talk about authentic, I like to talk about having a person with integrity. Your religious foundation has to be at the very core of what motivates you to do everything. And if you're going in business thinking you're going to be able to work in an environment that doesn't honor those values that you have at the core religiously, you're making a mistake. If you go in there and you understand the values of any organization, that you can allow yourself to be true to your core, be integrated with your core, and that your faith is able to be integrated into everything that you do, you'll be fine. Doesn't mean you won't have bad days, doesn't mean you won't have lousy bosses, doesn't mean you won't have ups and downs in life. The other thing that you got to realize when you go into the big bad world is sin is very real. And you know, I came out of this place and I was all full of excitement and full of great desires to do things that were going to honor God and propel His, kingdom building. That's what it was all about. And I got into the world and I found out that people will take advantage of you, they'll mess with you, they will lie to you, they'll steal from you. Sin is very real. So as a Christian, you got to develop an understanding of what life is going to be like in the workplace too, that acknowledges the fact that you're going to deal with sin in your life and in other people's lives. Don't kid yourself. It's nasty. There's a war going on between the kingdom of light and the kingdom of darkness, and it goes on inside of every one of us, and it sure goes on inside of business. And you want to really heighten it, have it be over money issues. That's where things really get heightened. Not in a good way either sometimes.
And that importance of values, what did in one of the books, the absence of values is the start of chaos.
Yeah.
And I think what you've observed with the Business Advisory Council, I know you mentioned when we spoke earlier that you were very happy to see how open the faculty is to change. And I think it comes from a common view that what we want is to facilitate finding God's calling in the students' lives. It's not about protecting territory. It's not about making sure things are done the way we've done them in the past. It's about looking towards the future, and we want to empower students to have fulfilling lives in service to God's kingdom. That's not just going to happen within the confines of a classroom.
Right.
What do you think are important ways that we need to get students involved outside of the classroom?
Well, I think that you have some wonderful things that have been going on here for a while with the consulting that goes on. Personally, I think that anybody who wants to have a business career, internships are just so invaluable. What happens in those is you walk through a door and you are given responsibilities and you feel the dynamic of working in a real environment. And you find out about all of the politics in the offices and all of the the ways people communicate and the ways people get their work done. And you start at a very young age starting to crystallize what you want when you get into your real job. And from the business owner side, man, it's a no-brainer for us because we get to pick who's the right kind of person to have involved, and our exposure is nothing. That's perfect for us because selection of employees is a very tricky thing nowadays, and you can invest a lot of money and end up losing everything you've invested. So internships are great for us, and it's great for the student because, I mean, you might work in a company like SET for 2 weeks and say, I want nothing to do with this. Well, that's a very valuable thing that you just learned. That's a door that is closing. And you got to do those things. You got to jump in the pool and see what the water temperature is. Everybody has to do that.
You've had the opportunity to meet a couple times with your student group. Yeah. What would you say excites you about the future of business leaders? Your interactions with the students, what qualities do you see that gives you great hope about the young people?
I see young people that are really excited about careers. And it's always exciting for a person who, I remember how that felt 40-some years ago, you know, thinking, what am I going to do now? How's that? And I look at these young people and I see that they haven't been jaded by anything yet. I mean, they're excited to try things, and they're ready to strap it on and start working and find out what a career is all about. For me personally, what really excites me is I hope that I get to impact somebody in here to maybe someday start your own business. I love entrepreneurship. I would love to encourage any of you who have a great idea to not let go of that thing. Any of you who want to work for bigger businesses, I encourage you to do that. I'm not the right guy to tell you how to maneuver through those worlds, but there are other people in the Christian community that can and will. Very important thing to do that, but my shtick is I love to start businesses. I started SET with absolutely nothing, and within 10 years I started 10 other businesses. Way too many, but it was so exciting to have the platform to try out new ideas, and I did that. And I mentioned this in Dr. Hamilton's course last year. I was in a class, and I just blatantly said, if any of you have an idea 5, 10 years from now, and you want anybody to help you to pick your brain and to help you materialize that, I'd be happy to do that. And I could find a handful of other guys and gals that would be happy to help you with that too. I think it's real important in the Christian community that we start developing more entrepreneurs, and that excites me.
Thank you. Now I'd like to open it up we have a couple of minutes for questions from the audience.
What was the biggest challenge you faced either in your personal life or in your career, and how did you kind of overcome that? More specifically, I guess, in the business world, what were some of the bigger challenges you faced, and how did you overcome those challenges?
Biggest challenge I ever had was I went off and I did something in business that I should never have done. I invested heavily in a business that I didn't understand, and it was far away, and I invested way too much money, and I committed way too many of our resources, and I went way in debt, and the whole thing fell apart. And I should have gone bankrupt, but I couldn't afford to because I owed so many friends money. So I had to learn how to live in a state of bankruptcy. And it was an amazing thing to go through. It was so hard, but it was the best thing that ever happened to me. I learned way more from my failures than I do from successes. And at the heart of the benefit there is that's where you really find out what your faith means to you. And if your faith is integrated into everything that you do, and it's right down to your core, it carries you through it. And then, of course, you know, Christian community. I can't tell you how many friends I know who my friends are, believe me. And I know who just is window dressing. And you learn those things. You learn the character of your children and your spouse when you go through those hard times. I had to apologize to my kids for making a huge mistake that was going to impact them for a long time. And they said, "We forgive you for that. We don't care about that stuff." So it was a very humbling experience. Very good, though. I wouldn't recommend it to anybody.
Yes.
Regarding the Right Way Ministries, what type of leadership roles do you have there and what is involved?
The Right Way is an organization in Ukraine. You've all been hearing about things going on in Ukraine right now. My wife and I, and Dr. Hamilton and his wife, and Judy Doot. I don't know if any of you have ever heard of Dr. Marty Doot. Judy was married to a preeminent doctor who specialized in substance abuse and addiction medicine. And we were approached by an organization called the Luke Society, which is out of South Dakota, which is it's an organization that comes out of the Reform community worldwide. And they asked us if we would be willing to serve as what is called a PMT, a partner management team, or ministry team. They changed it to ministry. What they want to do is they want to have a doctor teamed with business people to go into an area and help them with the medicine side and also with business development. And the six of us agreed to do it, and then Marty Doot died suddenly, the doctor, the guy who was the expert. So we got involved in helping these people evaluate what they were doing in their programs in Ukraine, and we ended up being able to complete a building that's now called the Marty Doot Center for inpatient substance abuse. And we, our PMT group, basically has contact with them on a regular basis, and we try to see them once a year. Either we go there or they come here, and we talk about how their ministry's going and ways that we can come alongside them and help them connect the dots, how to continue to grow the thing. And it's an exciting ministry. It's full of frustrations, ups and downs. It's full of life. Did that answer your question? Okay.
And that really captures that third phase of leadership, the giving back, being
yes.
able to be more involved with your
Did we
else.
talk about that? Did I see? Okay.
Yes.
I have lots of ideas about that.
And you'll have an opportunity at 11 o'clock to
Yeah.
share more with the students.
Yeah.
So I'd like to, and here's Dr. Hamilton. We want to thank you for all you're doing.
You have a present for me?
Yes. You gotta take it out here. You gotta take it out.
Thank you.
You can take it right out.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Isn't that pretty? For your work with the advisory council, for interacting with students, we just can't thank you enough.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.